before we were under the law. Now we are under grace. So, brothers and sisters, do you think that those under the law or those under grace are saved? Grace, those under grace are saved. The law governs sinners. Wherever there is law, there is sin. Before we were under the law, ruled by the law, belonging to Moses. The law says, do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal. That is, before we were ruled by the law. The law says, you have sinned again, you have sinned again. The law will always say, you sin, you sin, you sin, you sin. And, moreover, sinning means being put to death. To sin is to be put to death. The law is always like this. Before we were under the law. Now we are no longer governed by the law. Why is it that before we were governed by the law? Because we were sinners. So we were ruled by the law, governing us. Now are we still sinners? No longer, because we have died. For example, if a person has died, can the law still govern him? It cannot govern him anymore. That is before we were under the law, under the Old Testament Mosaic law. Of course, as for Gentiles, we cannot say they were under the law. We are Gentiles. But even if we are Gentiles, still, we sinned all the same. Speaking from the Spirit, from a spiritual perspective, we were also under the law, and the law has authority to govern us. Purgent. But if a person dies, can the law govern us? It cannot govern us anymore. Brother Heber saw many years ago a murder case. As for that murder case, it was said that 20 years ago, someone committed murder, a murderer, who killed multiple people. Later, the police kept pursuing this murderer, pursuing him for over 10 years. After pursuing him for over 10 years, when they finally tracked him down, they found that the murderer, 2 or 3 years ago, had already passed away. When the police finally identified who the murderer was, when they solved the case, they found that the murderer was already dead. Since he was already dead, the police could only say, let's see if there are any clothes he left behind, or various personal effects, to extract DNA from the clothes, to see if this murderer is indeed the one in the grave. Later on, they checked, and indeed, the murderer was already dead, is already dead.